We had another foreign policy blunder yesterday that led to the deaths of innocent people. Reuters explains a U.S.-led airstrike mistakenly killed 18 members of a Kurdish and Arab militia backed by Washington south of the Syrian city of Takba, the Pentagon said on Thursday. The U.S.-led coalition forces struck the position on Tuesday after another partner in the fight wrongly told them it was occupied by Islamic State militants, the Pentagon said, underlining the complex nature of the conflict. Quote, the target location was actually a forward Syrian Democratic Forces fighting position, the statement added. The SDF is fighting in a campaign to encircle and ultimately capture Raqqa City, Islamic State's main base of operations in Syria. So it's nice to know that this is how life and death decisions are being made. Yeah, I don't know. I heard from some other douchebags who we teamed with, who I don't know anything about, that these other people on the ground are the bad guys. So press the button, press the button, press the button. That's how they make these decisions. And it's been this bad for a while. Like, people tend to believe, it's so naive to think, oh yeah, you know, U.S. military, we're so high-tech that we make 100% sure before we do anything and we're getting the right people. That's how it works. You know, we can have a laser-guided missile hit a spot that's the size of a dime and only take out the right people. I mean, just look at what we know about drone strikes, for example. We know that there's a bunch of different kinds of drone strikes. There's personality strikes, where that's the one where they say, oh, we know who we're taking out and we're going to go after them. Then there's signature strikes where they go, not so sure we know who we're killing, but go ahead and do it. Then there's double taps. You attack and then you go back around and then you take out the first responders. That's a terrorist tactic. And again, so to them, like, what constitutes evidence of we got him? Like, we know we're getting the right person. They just say, oh, I don't know, we're tracking the cell phone, and the cell phone's in this area, and that's good enough. Do you know if there's maybe women and children around the person? And are you, well, still personality strike, we know well enough. And those are the best examples. Again, some of the other strikes are, we think, I don't know, go ahead. And now in Syria, we're going, I don't know, some jackasses who we don't know well told us that those are the bad guys, press the button, do. This is how life and death decisions are made. Again, it reminds me of the expose. I couldn't believe this wasn't a bigger story, but there was a story about how former drone operators came out and they're like, look, man, I got to keep it real. I have PTSD. I've done horrible things, and I'll never be able to forgive myself. Because they say the culture of the drone strikes was a bunch of people, oftentimes drunk, sometimes drunk and high on coke, who they treated it like a video game. And even when they saw little kids, they'd say, yeah, press the button anyway. It's a fun-sized terrorist. I'm not kidding. That's a direct quote. Somebody would say, it's a fun-sized terrorist. Worth it anyway. Just kill him and then you won't have to deal with the problem later on. Just a culture of callous indifference and not caring about massacring civilians, which is why even under Obama, you had a 90% civilian death rate with the drones, which is crazy. And now under Trump, he even loosened the rules of engagement. Now, in Syria, it's a particularly comical scenario because as we've discussed before, you have Pentagon armed and backed militias fighting CIA armed and backed militias, which means we're on both sides of the same goddamn war. You know, that seems like a waste of money and resources to me. That also seems deeply immoral and unethical to me. How can we just sit here and let that happen as our infrastructure gets a grade of D+, and people in Flint don't have clean water, and half the country makes $30,000 a year or less? I mean, you don't think we can take all this? Over 50% of our discretionary budget goes to military spending. You don't think we could chop that in half and then start sending the resources here to give people healthcare and give people education? I mean, it's crazy. We're on both sides of the same war, which makes no sense. And everybody's, it's cool. What's the problem? What's the problem? The establishment's like, yeah, this is the way it's supposed to work, right? This is what we do. We just get involved for no goddamn reason. I mean, they say, hey, Assad's a brutal dictator, vicious, terrible. We want him gone. The rebels, yeah, okay, most of them are jihadists. Okay, I've never seen a better invitation to stay the fuck out. We don't like either side. Oh, great, stay out. But no, we got to get involved. Oh, shit, we just killed civilians. And then what effect does that have? Of course, breeds anti-American hatred. Because how could it not? Because when you kill somebody's aunt and kill somebody's uncle, and again, the Kurds, so that's who was killed here. The Kurds it's like the one group in the region that we're supposed to have zero beef with Like, okay, you have some Shia militias. Well, we have a beef with them because we don't like Iran, for example, and Iran often backs the Shia militias. All right, the Sunni fighters. Well, they're jihadists, many of them, fundamentalists backed by Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and we don't like them. They're extremists. But the one group, the Kurds, who are kind of have unquestionably been on our side in this fight against ISIS the entire time, bomb them, and whoops, did we make an enemy out of the Kurds now too? It's unbelievable how incompetent, how stupid, and how immoral and unethical this is, man. Get the fuck out. Just get out. We don't need your benevolent love bombs, America. I mean, you're not helping. You're not. The war on terror, the idea, we got to limit or eliminate the number of terrorists in the world after 9/11. Okay. Mission failed. Wrap up. I mean, if it was going to happen, it was going to happen by now, right? 16 years later? It would have happened by now. No, but now there's more terrorists than there were then. So that's just a failure. That is an objective, empirical failure. You can't say it was a good idea. If you did nothing, there'd probably be less terrorists. Seriously. And then again, they want to pretend like, oh no, we're serious about doing this fight too. Well, then why are you still arming and propping up the Saudi regime when they're the chief ideological exporter of Salafism and Wahhabism, the ideology of ISIS? Every decision that's being made now by this administration is wrong. And the neocons are in the driver's seat, and it's easy to see with stories like this. The state of Oregon is trying to protect pot users from the federal government coming after them. So this is from ABC. They report Oregon state lawmakers who fear heightened marijuana enforcement by federal agents overwhelmingly approved Monday a proposal to protect pot users from having their identities or cannabis buying habits from being divulged by the shops that make buying pre-rolled joints and magic brownies as easy as grabbing a bottle of whiskey from the liquor store. The bipartisan proposal would protect pot consumers by abolishing a common business practice in the Pacific Northwest state, where marijuana shops often keep a digital paper trail of their recreational pot customers' names, birth dates, addresses, and other personal information. The data is gleaned from the driver's licenses, passports, or whatever other form of ID they present at the door to prove they're at least 21 as required by law. So, basically what they're saying is, we don't trust the Trump government, we don't trust Attorney General Jeff Sessions, we think it's a liability to our customers that we have their personal information here. Now, previously they weren't using the personal information to nefarious ends. They were using it for, reasonable causes that the people would be fine with. But now they say, oof, this is going to be an issue if they decide to come after us. So they're basically giving up all the personal data of their customers. Now, this is good news coming out of Oregon that they're trying to protect recreational marijuana users. But yet again, I have to add this disgusting, sad caveat here, which is that federal law overrides state law. And what that means is, even though you're trying to protect them, and even though it might help in some cases, they're still subject to prosecution if they get caught. And that's a problem that can only be fixed at the federal level. That's the only way to fix it, is to change the federal laws, say marijuana is not a Schedule I substance anymore, which is crazy because that means it doesn't have recreational or medical uses. You got to take it off Schedule I, and really what you should do is legalize, tax, and regulate it at a federal level, like our northern neighbors in Canada are trying to do right now. But don't hold your breath for that under the Trump administration. But what we should do, all activists, the people, we should all get involved. We should all keep pushing this issue because 60% of the American people are already with us. So that means it's a matter of time until we have a government that needs to be responsive to the pressure if we keep applying the pressure. And maybe, just maybe, one day we'll end this national nightmare, have legal marijuana, end prohibition, and also free all the nonviolent drug offenders. That's another no-brainer. Yesterday, the military dropped the largest non-nuclear bomb that we have in Afghanistan. Largest non-nuclear bomb. So its nickname is the mother of all bombs. Sounds pretty colossal if you ask me. It weighs about 21,000 pounds. It's so big that it has to be dropped out of the back of a cargo plane. They can't just use a standard fighter jet because not good enough, not big enough. You got to drop it out of the back of a cargo plane. The blast radius for this bomb is 1 mile in every direction. This was just dropped yesterday. Just like, little casual, nonchalant Thursday. What are you doing? I don't know. I'm going to grab a sandwich, maybe a soda, drop a near-nuclear bomb. The Pentagon says that they were trying to take out ISIS tunnels. I like how the establishment press loyally reported it as such. They were just stenographers to power. Virtually every single headline in every single outlet was like, in Afghanistan, ISIS targeted by U.S. bomb. Now, understand the way the press is supposed to work is fact-checking, holding the people in power accountable. So if the Pentagon says, or some general says, yeah, we were taking out ISIS with this move, you're supposed to go, oh, really? So do you have further evidence of that? Do you have information, data? Can you present something to me that is, in fact, believable? That makes me go, oh, they're not just saying that. Because here's the deal, they're always going to tell you, oh, we only got the bad guys. That's what we always do. It's always the bad guys. In his first raid, he killed an 8-year-old American girl and 30 civilians. Recently in Mosul, 200 civilians. So they always say initially, yeah, we got a stronghold of ISIS or Al-Qaeda because we're great. It's what we are. It's what we do, man. We just get the bad guys. And then we learn that's not true. So what are they saying now? For the first, 6-7 hours or so after the bomb dropped, they said, oh, we don't have any casualty reports. We don't have any of that. We don't have that yet. And then they said, we got 36 ISIS guys. Again, same script. The initial report, you say, we got all bad guys. And then, 2 weeks later, when nobody's looking, you get, it starts in more fringe outlets, and then it leaks out more to the mainstream. But it's, yeah, did we say we got bad guys? We actually got civilians. So I don't trust them in any way. And I'll reserve judgment until I see more accurate numbers. I don't just believe the Pentagon and their talking points and our lapdog press, which acts as a stenographer for them. So they say they were trying to take out ISIS tunnels. Now, to the extent that that's true, guess who built those tunnels? That's right, the CIA in the 1980s to help the Mujahideen when the Mujahideen were fighting the big bad Soviet Union. We despised the godless communists so much that we armed and backed what eventually became Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. You had Osama bin Laden, who was described as a freedom fighter in Western media outlets. You have the Taliban meeting in the White House with Ronald Reagan. So, again, this is hilarious because it's the same thing like with Saddam Hussein. He's got some pretty bad weapons, so we got to go in there and attack him. Who gave him those weapons? It's weird. You left that part out. You were the ones who armed him, and now you're like, oh, I can't believe this guy has weapons. Same thing here. Oh, build the tunnels, and let's help the Mujahideen. And, oh, God, wait, years later, we got to take out the tunnels. The Mujahideen. I mean, what are we going to do? They're crazy jihadists over here. So about 95,000 human beings live near where the bomb was dropped. Now, they weren't, at least as far as we know, directly where the bomb was dropped. They're outside of the exact blast radius, but you feel the effects for miles and miles and miles in every direction when a bomb like this is dropped, needless to say. And we don't have reports yet on how many of those 95,000 people were affected in the sense that, hey, their windows were blown out. You go deaf if you're within a certain, distance from the epicenter of the bomb. So we don't have any information on that yet, but I assume in time some more will come out. And I'm sure more will come out about the so-called 36 ISIS people that we got. And so here's a fact that I find incredible. How many ISIS fighters are even in Afghanistan? Because, you could be forgiven if you thought, oh, what do you even mean ISIS in Afghanistan? I mean, there's ISIS in Syria, and there's ISIS in Iraq, but ISIS in Afghanistan, I'm not even sure I ever heard of that. Yeah, most people didn't. You want to know why? Because there's only 600 to 800 ISIS fighters in Afghanistan. Yeah, but where'd you get those numbers, Kyle? Code Pink? That's from the U.S. military. That's what they say. 600 to 800, and you dropped a near-nuclear weapon to destroy some tunnels that they maybe had. And by the way, what's going on there specifically in Afghanistan? What is ISIS doing in there, and who are they fighting, and where are the attacks centered? There's currently a war going on between ISIS and the Taliban. Yeah, you know what I call that? A problem that takes care of itself. Who doesn't want to see ISIS and the Taliban go at it? And who doesn't want to see them die in the process? Does that make me a dick? I don't think it makes me a dick, right? Because They are genuinely horrific people. So, but that's a perfect example of a place and time for us to go, would you look at that? It's time to get the fuck out of clock. I got shit I gotta do. But no, we decide, hey, we're going to go in there and we're going to bomb and we're going to drop a near nuclear weapon to take out 600 to 800 people. What the fuck is this? Why not let them fight each other, and why wouldn't we mind our business? Look, I think there's something more to this story, which is I think they're trying to flex a little bit, and the U.S. is trying to send a message to various countries. But one of them, North Korea, we'll get to that story in a little bit, where we're trying to say, hey, we're not fucking around, son. You better listen to what we say. And of course, it's a stupid idea. Of course, this is the neocons having completely taken over Trump's bitch-ass White House. Mr. half the time on the campaign trail saying, we're not going to do nation building, no more stupid wars, we're not going to waste money overseas, we're going to rebuild here at home, we're going to do infrastructure, that's what we're going to do. Tremendous. All that's gone. Gone. It just took 1 or 2 meetings with a bunch of idiot neocons who can sound mildly persuasive for him to go, oh yes, I agree 100%. Do whatever you want. I told you, he cut out the middleman for the military-industrial complex. There used to be people who have, careers in government in governmental positions, and they would take their marching orders from defense contractors, but there was at least a little bit of a, hey, it's got to go from point A to point B. What did Trump do? Fire the people in government and just bring in the defense contractors and hire them to be in your administration. That's what Trump did. So that's, neocon on steroids. Dick Cheney's somewhere beaten off to this. Donald Rumsfeld. Paul Wolfowitz, Bill Kristol. These guys, oh my God, John Bolton. I can't believe we're getting exactly what we want on every single front now. That's what it is. From attacking the Syrian government to escalating in Afghanistan to escalating in Iraq. 432% increase in drone strikes. Now they're escalating further with North Korea. They're really trying to do everything that they laid out in the Project for a New American Century. Wait for it, man. Iran, they're going to ramp up fears about Iran, and they're going to escalate, and they're going to come up with some bullshit about how, we got to do regime change there. Oh my God, look at what we found out. There's new information. Just like what they did with Assad with the chemical weapons. Oh, big bad Assad did a chemical weapons attack. We have to go in. We don't have a choice. Watch, that's all going to happen for Iran too. Give it time. Give it time. And so how much did this whole process cost too? I love how whenever the conversation is education or healthcare or anything for you, the people, they go, oh my God, it's too expensive. What are we going to do? It's a deficit debt. It's terrible. We can't spend money we don't have. What are you, crazy? We got to be smart about what we do with our funds. Not a single word in the mainstream media. Not a single word. Oh, hey, can we afford this? Well, so what was it? It was $16 million for the bomb, $314 million for production of the bomb. So we have nearly $500 million to spend to drop a near nuclear weapon in the middle of nowhere, Afghanistan, to maybe take out ISIS tunnels that we created, the CIA created for the Mujahideen. Meanwhile, ask the people in Flint, Michigan how they're doing. How's their water? How's that? How they feeling? Any neurological problems some people have there? Perpetual illness? Chronic illness? Is that a thing? Of course that's a thing. And it's not just Flint, by the way. There are many cities across America and towns that have polluted water as a result of fracking and other things. So I think maybe we should take care of that before we drop near nuclear weapons. How gratuitous is this? Yeah, we need one of the biggest bombs we have, the single biggest bomb we have in terms of conventional weapons. We need that. No, you don't. You don't need that. It's a waste of money, a waste of resources. You're not accomplishing anything with it. But again, you have 600 to 800 ISIS fighters in Afghanistan, and they're fighting the Taliban. Let them fight. What are we doing? The world is Trump's playground and the neocons' playground, and they just like pushing buttons and seeing shit blow up. And the disgusting reaction from people to this, man. There's so many people just callous indifference or weird conspiracy theories that, again, link back to Russia. He's just trying to deflect from the fact that he's Putin's puppet. It's like they're trying to come up with, the corporate Democrats want to argue against Trump, but they don't, like the thing right in front of them that's like, hey, this is bad. They're like, no, let's, Russia, move that aside. Like, what do you mean? Like, oh, he's trying to distract from how shitty his presidency is. But what makes his presidency shitty so far? The fact that he's doing stuff like that, that's the shitty thing. Hey, I just dropped a near nuclear bomb for no goddamn reason in the middle of Afghanistan. What the fuck? That's what you talk about. Like, no, Russia. So people are just callously indifferent or nonchalant about it, and then you got other people who are conspiracy-minded about it, and then you have Fox News. Fox News, I kid you not. I saw the clip right before I came on air here. On Fox and Friends, you had Geraldo Rivera and Brian Kilmeade and the rest of the bobbleheads saying, well, isn't this great? This is what freedom looks like. And Geraldo says, yeah, one of the things I love, following politics is watching bombs get dropped on bad guys. How childish are these people? How unserious are they in terms of research, in terms of critical thinking? Under Obama, we had 90% of the time, drones did not hit the intended target. 90% of the time! That is mental! Now, under Trump, he loosened the rules of engagement. We just covered it. He did it specifically in Somalia and North Africa. He said, you know what? We think we worry too much about civilian casualties. So, again, 432% increase in drone strikes. Have the civilian death rate shooting up even more under Donald Trump. We keep seeing the stories, 200 civilians dead in Mosul, 30 dead in, Yemen or Pakistan in a raid, killed an 8-year-old girl. I mean, and all they have to say is this is what freedom looks like when you drop a near-nuclear weapon for no reason when ISIS and the Taliban are fighting each other. That's what I call a win-win. What happened to non-intervention? What happened to spending our money here at home? Guys, this is sick, man. The Trump administration is considering an offensive strike against North Korea. Yeah, so this is from NBC News. The U.S. is prepared to launch a preemptive strike with conventional weapons against North Korea should officials become convinced that North Korea is about to follow through with a nuclear weapons test, multiple senior U.S. intelligence officials told NBC News. North Korea has warned that a big event is near, and U.S. officials say signs point to a nuclear test that could come as early as this weekend. The intelligence officials told NBC News that the U.S. has positioned 2 destroyers capable of shooting Tomahawk cruise missiles in the region, one just 300 miles from the North Korean nuclear test site. American heavy bombers are also positioned in Guam to attack North Korea should it be necessary, and earlier this week, the Pentagon announced that the USS Carl Vinson aircraft carrier strike group was being diverted to the area. The U.S. strike could include missiles and bombs, cyber and special operations on the ground. The danger of such an attack by the U.S. is that it could provoke the volatile and unpredictable North Korean regime to launch its own blistering attack on its southern neighbor. On Wednesday, North Korea said it would hit the U.S. first with a nuclear weapon should there be any signs of U.S. strikes. On Thursday, North Korea warned of a merciless retaliatory strike should the U.S. take any action. Now, this story actually gets even more frustrating and scary because, so after this story was released, you had officials in the Trump administration who were apoplectic, and they're like, how dare NBC News write this? This is dangerous to them to write this, and it's also just fundamentally not true. And everybody went, okay, so go ahead, you tell me what the real story is. So what are the plans here with North Korea? They're like, we are not planning a preemptive strike. We are not planning an offensive strike. What we're saying is there would be a retaliatory strike. And so reporters were like, okay, retaliatory to what? And they go, oh, a nuclear test. It's a test. North Korea did plenty of tests nuclear tests under Obama. Now look, do I like it? Of course not. Is it good? Of course not. Is it something you should wage an literal attack on them for doing? No. But that's the thing is like, his administration is just filled to the brim with neocons now, and they run everything to the point where they're serious when they say it is retaliatory on our part to strike them if they do a test. That's what they say. They're like, no, they couldn't believe somebody would suggest that, a preemptive offensive strike against North Korea is indeed preemptive and offensive if they dare do a nuclear test. No, but that is preemptive. That is offensive. A test is a test. A test doesn't mean, hey, we just launched against South Korea, or we just launched against Tokyo, or Alaska, or California. Sorry, fuckface, we're coming after you. No, it means they're fucking doing a test. They've done tests under Obama. But they say, now, this is how you know the neocons have taken over. They go, yeah, but if they do that test, we're going to attack them. And you can't call it preemptive or offensive. That is what we're going to call it, because that is what it fucking is, you idiot. This is dangerous, man. This is really dangerous. They're handling this the exact wrong way. And their rhetoric is all like, tisk, tisk, look at them escalating. You literally just took warships and moved them to North Korea, right near where North Korea is, in strike range. Who the fuck does... Oh, let's move the warships there, and then we will wag our finger at you for maybe doing a test. Again, I don't like the test. It's not a good thing. Is it something to start a war over? No, no, no. You're cornering a man, baby. The guy, he's a hereditary authoritarian leader. He was given a country by a dad who pretended that they're demigods. Why are you playing with fire? That motherfucker's crazy. Stay the fuck away from him. That's what I would do. Look, do I feel horrible for the people in this country? Of course I do. But don't we have enough evidence to prove that regime change doesn't fucking work? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Okay, we'll attack them. And then what? Even assuming the best case scenario, we toppled the North Korean regime and they didn't launch a counter-strike against Seoul, which, by the way, they would immediately. Let's be clear about that. Goodbye, Seoul, if that were to happen. But let's say that for whatever reason, weapons malfunctions, yada, yada, didn't happen. Well, then what? Hey, we toppled the fucking demigod. That's how they're viewed in North Korea. I guarantee you tomorrow, a Jeffersonian democracy is going to flourish. Their internet has like 6 sites. What are you going to do? Teach a whole country? Oh, by the way, so this is how a parliamentary system works. Let's sit down and talk. You can't fucking... Are you kidding me? Well, unless, what do you want to do? You want the U.S. to just go in there and run everything? We don't even have clean water in Flint, Michigan, but you want to occupy North Korea and fix their system of government, which is 17 different levels of fucked? I can't, man. The neocons now completely and utterly run the Trump administration. It's not even close. It's not even close. I mean, look, you have 2 different factions within the Trump administration. You have the faction that is the establishment Republicans and the globalists, if you will, like Jared Kushner, Gary Cohn, all the people from the military-industrial complex. So that's one faction of the Trump administration. The other faction is the ultra-nationalists. That's Steve Bannon. Now, with Steve Bannon, you don't want him to win on issues like immigration, where he's as hardline as it gets. There was an old radio clip of him saying he basically even wants to kick out legal immigrants. He doesn't like legal immigration. He doesn't like people from South Asia coming to Silicon Valley. He's as extreme as it gets on that issue. He's as extreme as it gets on many social issues. Like, he would love nationwide stop and frisk. He wants to ban all Muslims. So you don't want him to win on that. What you do want Steve Bannon to win on, economics, because he's more protectionist than the others in the administration, and foreign policy. As bad as these guys are, they're also Pat Buchanan-esque. They're like paleo-conservatives, where they say, we don't want to do interventions. We don't agree. We're not neocons. But apparently the neocons have Trump's ear. And there are reports, when Steve Bannon was kicked off the National Security Council, I went, uh-oh. Because that's the one area where he could have been a mitigating force, like on the issue of Syria, for example, where he would have said, just don't go in. But the others were like, yo, we got to go in because freedom and democracy and the military-industrial complex is awesome and stuff. So when he was kicked off there, I was like, uh-oh. And then what happened? Now there are reports that he's being pushed more and more to the side. And he might get fired now. So it'd be a weird thing. But yes, if Steve Bannon gets fired, that means that on economic issues and on foreign policy issues, the Trump administration will get even worse. And that's what's happening. You have Gary Cohn, the people from Goldman Sachs, Jared Kushner, the rest of the establishment. They're running Trump's administration when it comes to foreign policy and when it comes to economics too, obviously. So maybe the only thing that Bannon still had influence on Trump over was TPP. The one decent thing he did. So this is horrific, man. And it's the crown prize of the neocon. What has Trump done so far foreign policy-wise since being in there? Increased drone strikes 432%. Put boots on the ground, more boots on the ground in Afghanistan and in Syria. Launched an offensive attack against the Syrian government. And now we know, the fucking near-nuclear bomb in Afghanistan that he just dropped yesterday. Insanity. When meanwhile, he's attacking ISIS. There's maximum 800 ISIS fighters in eastern Afghanistan. You need a near nuclear weapon for that? And they're fighting the Taliban. Let them fucking fight. Who cares? And now we know North Korea is next. They're thinking, let's do something about North Korea. That is such a bad idea. I can't even put into words how bad an idea it is, because here's how it would actually go down. You would have an attack against North Korea. So they would say, oh, you did a missile test. Then they would do an attack. All their rhetoric says, we'll do an attack if you do a missile test. Unless at the last minute there's a Hail Mary from one reasonable person in the administration who goes, yeah, you don't do it. You can't attack. But all their rhetoric is, we'll attack if they do a test. If we attack, they attack Seoul. It's not even a question. They attack Seoul, South Korea. And by the way, they're claiming, North Korea is claiming, no, we won't attack Seoul. If the U.S. attacks, we'll attack the U.S. Now, look, the intelligence that we have on them says they don't have the capability, they don't have the long-range weapons to do so. But do you want to roll the fucking dice? Is that what you want to do? Here, I'm president. Here's how I handle North Korea. Warships, gone. Take them out. They're no more in North Korean waters. Amped up rhetoric and fucking aggressive tweets from Trump, done. Don't even discuss North Korea in that sense in any way. You call China to the table, you talk with China, you de-escalate the situation. You want to let them do their shitty fucking tests? Let them do their shitty fucking tests. Guys, it's a fucking hereditary dictatorship, one of the poorest countries in the world, one of the most isolated countries in the world. They're not going to launch an offensive attack. They're not going to do an offensive attack. They know they'd be obliterated immediately. But if you attack them first, then they're going to attack. So let the fucking man baby have his backwards ass country. And if you have any effect on them, you have to do it through diplomatic channels. You have to be clever about it. You have to be smart about it. You can't do it. You can undermine his dictatorship through reasonable methods using, your words and negotiating tactics and back channels. That's how you handle something like this. The idea that you're about to do a standoff with probably literally the craziest leader in the world. Why would you do that? Well, the answer is the neocons now run the Trump administration.